If you are enjoying this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Share it with your friends and let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? Every like and subscribe helps the channel grow. The hum of diesel was the only sound that broke the silence of the night. A long stretch of asphalt twisted ahead like a coiled serpent, illuminated only by the twin beams of Marcus Holt's headlights. He'd been driving for over 16 hours, now deep into the belly of the Midwest where the towns were small, the gas stations even smaller and the nights darker than hell. Marcus was a trucker. Had been for nearly 2 decades, seen every kind of person, place, and pit stop from Oregon to Florida. He'd hauled freight through snowstorms that turned highways into death traps, and through deserts where the heat peeled paint off trailers, like dried scabs. But nothing had prepared him for the things he would start to see in the year everything changed. It started on a Tuesday, a route he'd taken a dozen times before, Kansas to Colorado, just a standard overnight delivery livestock feed. Nothing flammable, nothing weird. That's how he liked it. He always drove at night. Less traffic, fewer people, just the stars and the road. But on this night, the sky was thick with clouds, the moon nowhere in sight. It was near a stretch called Dead Man's Curve. Every trucker in the region had heard the name, though nobody really used it seriously. Just a name that stuck after a couple of bad crashes back in the 90s. But as Marcus approached that bend, the hair on his arms rose like hackles. His foot hovered above the pedal, something primal inside him whispering, "Slow down." Then he saw a woman in white standing dead center in the middle of the road. He yanked the wheel left and the truck veered sharply, tires screaming against the blacktop. The trailer fishtailed behind him, swaying like it might tip. He fought to keep the rig steady and finally came to a grinding halt, breath caught in his throat, eyes wide with panic. But there was nothing. No woman. Just the road and the hiss of his air brakes. He sat there for several minutes, heart pounding, hand trembling as he reached for the thermos beside him. His coffee was cold. He didn't care. He drank anyway, burned or bitter, anything to snap him out of whatever the hell he just saw. "Jesus," he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Get it together." He got the truck moving again, slower this time, eyes scanning every inch of the road. He told himself it was just fatigue. Maybe he'd nodded off for a second. That could happen, even to seasoned drivers. But then the radio crackled. He hadn't touched the CB all night. Nobody out here really used it much anymore, except for weather updates or the rare check-in. But it came alive on its own, the static sharpening into a voice that didn't belong. "You shouldn't have swerved." Marcus froze. His hand hovered over the dial. The voice was whispery, brittle, like someone speaking through broken teeth. She was waiting. He turned the knob, trying to shut it off, but the voice continued, louder now. "You left her behind, Marcus." His heart slammed against his chest. He hadn't told anyone his name that night. Not at the way station, not at the last truck stop, nobody. He ripped the plug out of the CB radio and threw it on the passenger seat. Silence. No more voice. But the feeling in his chest didn't go away. The silence after the voice cut off was worse than the voice itself. It filled the cab like a fog, dense and suffocating. Marcus kept one hand on the wheel and the other clenched tightly on his leg, fingernails digging into denim. His headlights pushed through the darkness, but it felt like they weren't reaching as far as they should. Like the dark was swallowing the light faster than it could spread. Then came the smell. It was faint at first, something metallic, sour, rotting meat mixed with the bitter stench of burned rubber. He checked the dashboard. No warnings, no overheated engine, no coolant leak. Everything was running as smooth as ever. Still, the smell grew stronger. Marcus cracked the window, hoping to air out the cab. Instead, the stench intensified, rushing in like a living thing. It curled into his nostrils and seemed to settle in his throat. He gagged and slammed the window. Shut, then something moved in the rear view, not on the road, inside the trailer. Marcus squinted at the side mirror, trying to catch another glimpse. Just shadows. The reflective white of the trailer caught only fragments of the highway lights, but something had shifted inside. He knew it, and then came the bang. A heavy thud from inside the cargo hold, like something or someone had slammed against the walls. He jumped. What the hell? Another bang, louder this time. Then a screeching sound, like claws on metal. There shouldn't be anything alive back there. It was a sealed shipment of feed, grains and supplements. Nothing else. He pulled off to the shoulder, heart hammering, flashers on. He stepped out, steel-toed boots hitting the gravel shoulder as he moved cautiously toward the back. The wind was dead still. No rustling grass, no insects, no passing cars, just the slow crunch of his steps. He unlatched the trailer and swung the door open. Nothing. Pallets of bagged feed stood untouched, stacked neatly. The smell was still there, but it didn't seem to be coming from inside. He stepped up into the trailer anyway, flashlight in hand. The beam sliced through the dark space, catching nothing unusual. Then the door slammed shut behind him. Marcus spun, banging his shoulder into a stack of feed sacks. Hey! He ran to the door, heart in his throat, and flung it open. The highway was gone. Where there should have been a shoulder and the distant glow of passing headlights, there was only blackness, an all-consuming void. No moon, no stars. Just a thick, oppressive dark that stretched forever. He stepped back inside, closed the door, and opened it again. Same thing. Only darkness. That's when he heard it again. A voice. This time behind him. You brought it with you. Marcus turned the flashlight toward the sound, but the beam flickered and died. Total black. He reached for his phone. No signal. Of course. The voice came again, closer this time. She's hungry. Marcus backed against the door, fumbling for the latch. The handle was wet. Slick. He pulled his hand back and felt something thick and sticky between his fingers. Even in the dark, he knew it was blood. The floor shifted. The entire trailer moved. Not like a truck being jostled, but like the trailer itself was breathing, expanding and contracting, groaning under its own weight. The cargo walls stretched, metal creaking like bones under pressure. Marcus dropped to his knees, crawling toward the crack of dim light under the door, praying it would open. It did. He fell out into gravel, hard and fast, but he wasn't on the highway anymore. He was standing in the middle of an overgrown field. His truck was there, but it was rusted through. Tires melted. Cab collapsed in on itself like it had been abandoned for years. Marcus. The voice again, right behind him. He turned. The woman from the road stood only feet away, pale, hollow-eyed. Her mouth hung slightly open, and from it came the sickening noise of wet breathing, like lungs filled with mud. You saw me, she whispered. You swerved. She stepped forward. Her dress dragged through the dirt like a veil, soaked in black sludge. You left me there. Marcus backed away, stumbling over a jagged rock. She reached for him, and everything went dark. Marcus gasped, bolting upright with a scream caught in his throat. He was back in his truck, seatbelt still on, dashboard lights blinking softly. Engine purring, CB radio unplugged, still lying on the passenger seat. For a long moment he sat motionless, trying to piece together what had just happened. His hands were trembling, soaked in sweat. He looked out the window. The highway was there, stretching endlessly into the night. The moon had emerged, casting pale silver over the road. Nothing out of place, except he felt different. Wrong. He leaned forward and glanced into the side mirror. His face stared back. Drawn, tired, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in weeks. His fingernails were crusted with something dark. Dried blood? No, that couldn't be. He opened the door and climbed out to check the trailer. It was normal. Back. Doors sealed, padlock untouched. But that stench was still faintly there. metallic and foul, like death clinging to the edges of a memory. Marcus didn't speak to anyone about it. He finished the delivery the next morning and took 3 days off. Told dispatch he had flu symptoms. They didn't argue. He spent the time drinking and sitting in silence at his apartment, curtains drawn, lights off. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, the woman on the road, the rotten field, the truck crumbling like a corpse. He thought it was over, but that was just the beginning. A week later, he picked up a new load out of Arizona. Refrigerated unit, meat from a slaughterhouse. Going north to Idaho, easy money. He hesitated when he saw the route included another stretch of empty desert highway. But he convinced himself the last trip was a fluke, maybe even a dream. Long drives could do strange things to the mind. He left just before dusk. The desert bled, color as the sun sank behind rust-colored hills. The heat shimmered above the road, warping the horizon into a mirage. Once the sun disappeared, the temperature dropped fast. A cold wind pressed against the cab, whispering through the vents. Marcus kept the radio off. For several hours, the trip went smoothly, until he saw the lights. Not headlights. These were different, flickering in the distance like lanterns swaying in the air. He slowed the truck, leaning forward to get a better look. The lights moved, 3 of them circling in the desert about 100 yards from the road. Then he saw people. Figures moving with the lights, dressed in long coats, wide-brimmed hats. Slow mechanical movements. Not like they were walking. Like they were being moved. Like puppets on invisible strings. Marcus's mouth went dry. He blinked, and the lights were gone. The figures, too. He pressed the gas and sped up. Bed. No more curiosity, no more stopping. The desert could keep its ghosts. But 20 minutes later, the refrigerated unit began making noise. A low hum turned into a groan. Then a knocking sound, steady, rhythmic, echoed from the trailer. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. He didn't want to look, but he had to. He switched on the rear camera feed. The trailer's inside was pitch dark, except for the pale glow of the refrigeration unit. The meat was sealed in containers. Nothing should be moving. But in the far corner, something was. A shape, hunched, bony, crawling. The camera flickered. When it returned, the shape was closer. Marcus slammed his fist on the dash. No. He reached for the trailer override and began slowing the truck down to pull over. Before he could, the interior lights of the cab flickered and died. Total black. Then came the breathing, inside the cab, right behind him. He didn't turn around. He couldn't. Every muscle in his body locked with fear. The breath was ragged, gurgling. Something wet dripped onto his shoulder. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Just stared forward, eyes wide, teeth clenched. Then a voice, no louder than a whisper. Still driving, always driving. They never let you stop. Suddenly the lights came back. Everything was normal again. No breathing, no shadow, no blood. Marcus pulled the truck over, heart slamming like a jackhammer. He sat for 20 minutes, hands gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He didn't sleep that night, didn't blink unless he had to, and when he finally delivered the load in Idaho, the receiving team looked pale. One of them, a young guy in a red flannel, came over after opening the trailer. "Hey man, I don't want to freak you out, but was this meat already cut when you loaded it?" Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" The guy swallowed hard. "Some of these slabs look like they've been chewed on, big bites, like something was in there with them." Marcus didn't respond. He didn't want to know. Marcus didn't take another job for nearly a month. He stayed in his apartment with the blinds drawn and the TV playing static just to drown out the silence. Sleep came in fits, broken by nightmares, of clawed hands banging from inside a trailer, or the hollow breathing of something sitting in the back seat just out of sight. He told himself he was done. He even called dispatch and said he was quitting for good. But 2 weeks later, he got a call from an old friend, Daryl, another long hauler out of St. Louis. The two had run jobs together back in the early 2000s, shared long drives, close calls, bar fights, and breakdowns. If anyone could shake him out of the spiral he was falling into, it was Daryl. "Marcus," Daryl said, his voice steady. "I've got something lined up. 2-man haul. Pays real good. Special cargo. But it's a straight shot. Louisiana to Oregon. 1 night, all back roads. Government contract, no questions. You in?" Marcus hesitated. Every fiber in his body screamed to say no, but something darker inside, something that had been stirring since that night on Dead Man's Curve, whispered, "Go." So he said yes. The job started just outside Baton Rouge, a remote facility surrounded by barbed wire and floodlights. They didn't even see the cargo, just backed the rig up to a steel-reinforced bay door and waited as armed guards loaded it in. When Marcus asked what they were hauling, one of the guards just stared at him and said, "Don't stop. Whatever happens, don't stop." That was it. By the time they hit the road, it was past midnight. Daryl drove first while Marcus tried to rest. But sleep wouldn't come. The inside of the sleeper cab was too quiet, too dark. And there was something. A sound just barely audible over the engine. Not in the trailer. In the walls. Like whispering, faint, breathy voices slipping between the rivets and panels. He pressed his ear against the wall and heard his own name. Not just once. Repeated. "Marcus. Marcus. Marcus." When he snapped upright, Daryl was gone. He scrambled out of the sleeper and into the driver's seat. The truck was still moving, headlights cutting through a winding Louisiana back road lined with moss-draped trees. But Daryl wasn't there. His seat was empty, still warm. "Daryl?" No answer. Marcus pulled the truck to the shoulder and jumped. Out, flashlight sweeping the area. No sign of Daryl. No broken door, no blood. No noise except the buzzing of cicadas and the distant hoot of an owl. He circled the truck 3 times before climbing back in. Panic rising, mind racing. He looked in the rearview mirror. Daryl was in the back seat, eyes wide, mouth gaping, but before Marcus could speak, Daryl was gone again. He drove on, because the words echoed in his mind like scripture now. Don't stop. Whatever happens, don't stop. At 2:17 a.m., the temperature dropped by 30 degrees in under a minute. Ice formed along the edges of the windshield. His breath fogged the air, and from the back of the truck came a low, guttural growl. Not human, not animal. Something else. The truck swayed. The steering wheel pulled in his hands like something massive was shifting inside the trailer. He could feel it scraping against the floor, pressing against the walls. The rig groaned in protest. He looked at the rearview mirror, a shape pressed against the sealed bulkhead door. Huge, twisted arms far too long, face blank except for a vertical mouth that stretched from forehead to chin, lined with glistening teeth. Then it whispered, "Feed me." Marcus screamed and floored the gas. The next 10 hours were a blur of dark highways, winding roads, and hallucinations. He saw Daryl in the middle of the road waving him down, face torn open like a split fruit. He saw a man on fire jogging alongside the truck, keeping pace. He saw children crawling out of culverts, dragging chains behind them, eyes black as oil. He didn't stop. Not until he reached the Oregon drop point, another military facility, surrounded by electric fences and concrete bunkers. When he pulled up, a team of men in hazmat suits directed him to back into a loading bay. He did, and once the trailer was secured, they locked it in place. 2 minutes later, someone opened the driver's door. A tall man in a black suit with no visible ID stood beside the cab. "Where's your co-driver?" Marcus just stared at him. "Gone." The man nodded once, as if he'd expected that. "You're free to go, don't look back." Marcus didn't argue. He didn't ask questions. He drove until the trees blurred and the road turned into something like a dream. Later, at a dive bar off I-5, he met another trucker. Guy looked about 70, eyes tired and full of ghosts. "You've seen it," the man said over his whiskey. "The thing they move in the night, the cargo nobody talks about, the whispers in the walls." Marcus said nothing. "You ever hear about the Hollow Mile?" the man asked, voice low. "No. You will." The Hollow Mile. The words clung to Marcus's thoughts like tar. That old trucker at the bar had vanished before Marcus could press for more, just stepped outside to smoke and never came back. Marcus waited hours, even asked the bartender who just shrugged. Old ghosts pass through all the time, he said, whatever that meant, but that name kept bouncing around in Marcus's skull, louder with each passing day. Hollow Mile. He started digging. Online forums. Old trucker message boards. Deep web rumor mills. It was always the same. Whispered warnings, vague stories, mostly dismissed as drunken folklore. But every once in a while, he'd find a thread with real fear behind it. You don't drive the Hollow Mile. You survive it. User Ditch Runner 66. Drove through somewhere in Nebraska, empty flat stretch, no cell towers, no exits, just road, for 8 hours. It should have taken 45 minutes. User Black Dog 88. The Hollow Mile ain't a place, it's a time, a window that opens when you're too tired to think straight. It finds you. User Deadlights in my rear view. The more he read, the more he realized this wasn't an isolated phenomenon. Stories from Canada to Mexico, coast to coast, drivers reported getting lost in a stretch of road that didn't show up on maps. Some said the sky changed colors. Others heard voices from the radio even when it was off. A few never came back. Marcus didn't believe all of it, but enough of it rang true to make him sit up at night, staring at his rig in the parking lot, wondering when the road would reach for him again. Then in early October he got a ping from dispatch. Simple run, solo haul, Colorado to Utah. Nothing weird. But something about the pickup address sent a chill down his spine. It was listed as Route 0, Mile 0, Dead Time Lane. Marcus stared at the screen. That wasn't a real address. It didn't look real. But something, inside him, some magnet of dread, clicked into place. This was it. The Hollow Mile had come calling. He set out at dusk. The pickup point was in the middle of nowhere, an old agricultural checkpoint surrounded by cracked asphalt and dying cornfields. The air smelled wrong. Not rotten, just expired, like time had stopped flowing there. A man in a gray uniform, no name tag, no badge, handed Marcus a sealed envelope and pointed to a rusted trailer. Cargo's loaded. Don't stop. Don't open the back. The envelope contained a map. Just a single road. Black ink scratched into yellowed paper. No names, no intersections, just a start and a finish. Across the top, someone had written, "Do not veer left." Marcus climbed into his truck. The GPS blinked out the moment he turned onto the road. He checked his watch. 1 p.m. By 8:12, he realized something was wrong. The road hadn't changed. Same yellow divider line, same withered trees, same half-buried mile marker stuck eternally at mile 6. He'd passed it 3 times. At 9:37, the world began to bend. The moon swelled to the size of a football field, hanging too low in the sky. The stars rotated. Marcus felt gravity twist. His head spun, hands sweaty on the wheel. From the back of the truck came a soft singing, children's voices. He turned up the radio. Static. Then, "You should have stayed asleep, Marcus." He nearly swerved off the road. At 10:11, the road split. A fork appeared. No warning. Right. The same endless 2-lane highway. Left. A narrow dirt road lined with stakes bearing old trucker caps nailed to the tops. Something deep in his gut screamed, "Don't veer left." He turned right. Almost immediately, the sky ripped open. Not metaphorically. The stars peeled back like torn canvas, revealing black void behind them. A thing pressed against the atmosphere, something vast, ancient, made of shadow and hunger. Its eyes, dozens of them, blinked in patterns, watching. His radio hissed, "Turn around, you don't belong here." The voice wasn't human. He pressed harder on the gas. At 11:45, the truck died, engine silent, lights out. Every system failed at once. He coasted to a stop. dead center in the road. Then the fog rolled in. Not mist. Fog. Thick, oily, pulsing like it was alive. It poured in through the vents, coating the dashboard. Marcus stumbled out of the cab, flashlight in hand. The world had vanished. Just road and fog. And then, footsteps. Behind him, he turned. A line of people stood in the fog. Dozens of them. Maybe more. They weren't real. Their eyes were hollow, lips sewn shut with barbed wire, skin grayed like they'd been underground too long. One of them lifted a hand and pointed toward the trailer. Marcus turned slowly. The trailer door was open. Something crouched inside. Massive. Crawling. Covered in the faces of people it had consumed. Faces that still blinked and wept and begged. Marcus backed away. He didn't remember getting back in the cab. Didn't remember the engine restarting. All he knew was the wheels were moving again. The fog was gone. And the stars had returned. He didn't stop driving until the sun broke the horizon. When he pulled off onto a normal interstate ramp, his hands were covered in blood. His own, he hoped. At the next way station, an officer checked his logs. "You've been driving for 16 hours straight," he said. "That's impossible." Marcus showed him the map. The officer looked at it for a long time. Then he said quietly, "I've seen one of these before." "What is it?" The man folded the paper, handed it back. "A toll you pay in pieces. Every time you go back, you leave more behind." Marcus said nothing. He just nodded, climbed into his truck, and drove on. But in the rearview mirror, one of those barbed wire-lipped people sat silently in the sleeper cab, waiting. Marcus kept driving, mile after mile, day after day, like something inside him had disconnected from the rest of the world. Food didn't taste right anymore. Sleep didn't come easy. And even when he managed to pass out in a motel room or the back of the cab, he always woke up in motion, hands gripping the wheel, engine rumbling like it never stopped. Like he never stopped. Sometimes he wasn't sure he'd even left the hollow mile. Maybe the whole country had become it now. Just one long, repeating stretch of haunted road with no exits. The things he saw didn't make sense anymore. Road signs that changed language mid-trip. Towns that weren't on maps. People standing perfectly still at the side of the highway, staring at nothing, bleeding from their eyes, and the faces, always in the rearview mirror. Pale, watching. One night outside of Wyoming, Marcus passed another trucker on the shoulder. The guy was just sitting in the cab, eyes glazed, mouth open. As Marcus drove by, the guy smiled. His teeth weren't teeth anymore, just rows of tiny fingers grasping the air. Then came the call, an unmarked number, just static at first. Then, "We need you for a special job, high value, sensitive cargo. Are you available?" Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came. The phone buzzed again. "You've already been chosen." The call ended. 3 hours later, a digital delivery notice pinged his dispatch system. Coordinates only. Marcus didn't argue. The pickup was in Montana. Deep country. The kind of place the GPS refuses to acknowledge. He followed crude road markers, wooden signs with scratched symbols he didn't recognize. Trees leaned toward the road like they were listening. Crows followed the rig for hours. At sunset, he reached a chain-link gate guarded by two men with hollowed-out cheeks and the smell of burnt ozone clinging to their clothes. They didn't speak, just opened the gate and pointed. The trailer was waiting. Matte black, no markings, no plate, no wheels. It floated 3 inches off the ground. Marcus hitched it up anyway. When he climbed back into the cab, something clicked behind his eyes, a pressure. Like an invisible needle had been slipped into his mind. Turn off the music, no distractions. He didn't know where the command came from. He just obeyed. This run was different. The road moved. He didn't steer. The wheel didn't respond. The truck drove itself, taking turns that made no sense, rolling through places that defied physics. He passed through a desert made entirely of teeth. A tunnel lit by candles that melted upward. A city with no people, just suits hanging, in midair. slowly swaying like they were still filled with someone long gone. Time broke apart. At one point, Marcus glanced at the clock and saw 03:19 p.m., then 03:19 p.m., then 03:19 p.m. He blinked, then it was dark again. At one point, he looked out the window and saw a copy of himself driving next to him. Same truck, same face, same blood on the collar, the E. Other Marcus turned, smiled, and mouthed, "Wrong route," then vanished. Marcus kept going. He reached the drop-off at a cracked airfield surrounded by old helicopters and tanks covered in vines. The ground buzzed like a dying insect. A woman in a green jumpsuit approached him. No insignia, no name. "You did well," she said. Marcus nodded, but he didn't speak. "You'll start forgetting things now. It's part of the toll." "Toll?" he croaked. She smiled softly with too many teeth. "You'll see." She was right. Over the next few weeks, the memories started to slip. First names, then places, then whole chunks of his life. He looked at photos and didn't recognize the people in them. He called his sister and didn't remember her voice. He'd wake up driving but couldn't recall picking up the load. Couldn't remember where it came from, or what it was. Sometimes he'd hear breathing inside the cargo. Sometimes he'd hear screaming. One night, he pulled over and opened the trailer, just for a second. Inside was a room. Just a room. Wooden floor. Lamps. A mirror, and, in the mirror, something was watching him, not mimicking, not copying. Watching. It smiled. He slammed the door and never opened it again. The dreams got worse. He started seeing the highway without end. A black road beneath a red sky, flanked by statues of weeping angels, all pointing forward. He saw the Yao Tower, a massive stone structure built in the center of an impossible city, covered in glyphs and faces. And he saw the sleeper in the rig, a giant buried beneath asphalt, its spine stretching across miles, its mouth open wide beneath the roads of America. It spoke to him. "Drive, until the wheels rot, until the sun burns out. Drive, and I will. Keep your soul in motion." Marcus begged for it to stop. The voice laughed. "You're already mine." He tried to quit again. He abandoned his rig outside a diner in Kansas, smashed his phone, threw away his wallet, and walked into the woods. But 2 days later, he woke up in the driver's seat, ignition on, trailer full, same route, same road, same hell. And this time there was something written on the windshield, in dust or blood or ash. "You can't quit the road." The days blurred. Marcus could no longer tell how long he'd been driving. Couldn't tell if it was day or night anymore. The sky above the highway changed colors at random. Violet, green, rust red, like a bruise spreading across the clouds. The moon would rise at noon. The sun would flicker in place like a faulty bulb. He'd long stopped receiving real cargo, assignments. His onboard computer just displayed a single word now, every trip. Deliverance, and the destinations. They weren't real cities. Echoes and mile-glass drowned county. Every time he arrived, the town was empty.